Life Management Science Labs would like to acknowledge that we live and produce this podcast on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people. We'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands of our listeners and our international colleagues. We'd like to thank and pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Hi everyone, and welcome to On the House, the Household Management Science Insights podcast, produced by LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. We are champions of life management science, providing structured insights informed by science and inspired by practice on key aspects of conscious living. Each week we bring you scientific and practical insights on each element, with expert knowledge from professionals in the field. I'm your host, Gabriella Joustra, coming to you from Naarm, Melbourne, Australia. Let's get started. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. Today we're going to be talking about shopping practices from the perspective of stocking the cabinet in case of emergencies with Anthony DiMarino, who is a registered dietitian from Cleveland, Ohio. Hi, how are you?
Hi, Gabriella. Good. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm pretty good today. So first of all, I think the best way to get to know you is if you do a little bit more of an introduction about yourself.
Absolutely. So I'm a registered dietitian, born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. I currently live here right now. I work as a registered dietitian, and I started out at the Ohio State University getting my bachelor's. And I really focus on helping clients and patients identify their strengths and opportunities and opportunities to make changes in their lifestyle and give them the tools and resources and empowerment to make changes, improving their health with their diet and exercise.
That's great. I think that prevention is the best way, I guess, to start off your health and then, moving on to, I guess, the rest of your health as well. It can also help. But before we get going with the proper interview, we'll get to know you a little bit better with a section we call Have You Met Anthony? So what's your favorite book?
This was hard because you may see on each side of my camera here, I am a bookie. I buy books impulsively, probably have too many that before I'll ever read them. When it comes to fiction books, I love Dan Brown. So The Da Vinci Code, Inferno, all of his stories. And when it comes to nonfiction, I love books by John Acuff. He's a professional development writer. A lot of great ideas and resources to help people professionally and personally with their making improvements in their life.
I think it's great that you've got the two sides of the nonfiction and fiction.
Can't all really just be professional develop all the time. You got to have fun with reading.
Exactly. What about a movie you've enjoyed recently?
Yeah, recently. I went and saw the new Avatar right around the holiday season, and I really enjoyed that. I actually went back and watched the original one a couple of weeks ago, and really brought back some great memories, and it was really enjoyable.
Yeah, a lot of people have said that they've really enjoyed that movie. I still need to get into it. I would desperately want to see it in the cinema. Is it worth watching in the cinema?
Yes, definitely. Make sure you have some decent time set aside because it's a long movie.
Okay. Yeah. No dinner reservations immediately after.
No.
What about any podcasts? Are you listening to any at the moment?
Yeah, so my favorite podcasts are The School of Greatness by Lewis Howes. I also listen to a podcast called Planet Money by NPR. And then, because I'm a guy, right, I love the podcast called The Art of Manliness.
Mm-hmm. What's that about?
Just different things about guys and what guys are into and how you can be the best, version of yourself.
Should we listen to it to get some tips on how to, understand guys a bit better?
I mean, we're pretty simple, so I don't think you need to listen to that podcast to figure us out.
Okay, fair enough. Do you have a role model?
Yeah, that was a tough one. When I kind of think of the people I try to emulate, it's usually strong male counterparts in my life that I just grew up knowing, namely probably my dad. He's my best friend, and I try and kind of, strive to be more like him in all I do.
Yeah, that's nice. And what about, is there a course that's inspired you?
I couldn't figure out a course, but I would say a collection of courses. A couple of years ago, I was part of Toastmasters, which is the International Organization for Public Speaking. And that gave me a lot of great confidence and tools to improve upon myself. As most recently, I completed my master's in business administration, and that gave me a lot of tools and resources to just learn about business, especially in healthcare. It's evolving and it's changing, and give me a lot of great ideas on how I can utilize that in my current career.
Yeah, I think it's really good to have that sort of mixture, as we mentioned before, having the mixture of healthcare, but also business practices coming together to inform what you do. Because it's great to be good in one thing, but it's great to be a doctor. But if you have a business, it's not going to be very good business. Right.
That's the thing, is that doctors go through medical school and move so much science and anatomy and all those areas, right? And they don't have a lot of business in their curriculum. And luckily for me, I live in Cleveland, and there's 3 huge hospital systems where these healthcare professionals can, get the structure and the foundation and the support from those hospital systems. But it's really difficult, running your own business in a healthcare setting if you're not supported by those huge systems.
Exactly. So we'll move on to our interview now. I guess first of all, what are the do's and don'ts when it comes to grocery shopping?
That's a big question, right? What are the do's and don'ts? And you probably hear from a lot of dietitians the general rule of thumb, just shop the perimeter, which I actually don't agree with, just because that's such a generalization. Because every grocery store is set up differently, right? And when you guys are in Australia, I'm not sure what your setup is like in grocery stores, but I've shopped in multiple different grocery stores. We're all set up a little differently. But it's more so about identifying what you need, right? What your goals are, what are you trying to accomplish, right? What you have, what resources you have to use in your home, and coming up with a plan, right? It's hard. You get really lost in the store if you just walk in and have no idea what you want to buy. So really having a plan. They always say don't go grocery shopping hungry. I've been stuck in that trap too, where I'm grabbing stuff off the shelf I probably shouldn't. Know the layout of the store as well. Know what's in what aisle, and you really understand learning how to read a label so that you can identify what is the healthy food item versus something that's not so much.
What about, you mentioned reading the label. What should we be looking out for there?
Absolutely. So there's a lot of different things to look at. Again, it goes back to your goals. What are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to maintain your weight? Are you trying to eat more clean? Are you trying to gain weight or lose weight? Trying to control your blood pressure? So it's always important to really identify what a serving is. A lot of people don't even know what a serving of whatever food they're trying to buy, and how many servings come in that container. Some people believe that whatever package they're buying, that's enough for one, right? And there's family size, there's party size. It's really understanding what a serving is, and then reading that label throughout, and noticing that whatever portion you eat, that's what you're getting from that's serving.
Yeah, I've fallen for that trap before. Eating something that you think should be one serving size, like a ready meal, and then you look at it, it's like, oh, actually, that's for 2.5 people.
Yeah, there's multiple. You gotta do some math, right?
Yeah,
to figure it out.
How do you figure out what's 2.5 of a meal? That's the one that kills me.
Absolutely.
So what about healthy food? It seems more expensive. Is that true?
I really think that's a misnomer, just because it depends where you're shopping and the economy too, because right now we're in inflation, but so some things will be a little bit more pricey, right? But to me, it's a trade-off, right? If you choose to eat unhealthy with processed foods and cheap foods, right, you put yourself at risk of getting chronic illness and sick down the line, right? And then there's the medical bills, there's the visits, there's the medications, right? So it pays off in the long term, but also there's strategies to really make food more affordable, right? Buying food in season, going to farmers markets, cutting coupons, right? Looking for the sales, buying the store brand, right? If you look at the shelves, there's all these different name brands, and then the store brand, you look at the labels and ingredients, they're the exact same thing, but half the price. So there's definitely strategies to make healthy eating more affordable and cost effective.
It does seem to take a bit more time though, like having to go to a farmer's market rather than going to the supermarket where everything is there.
Right. That's a great question. And the tough part about life is that there's always a trade-off, right? There's an opportunity cost there. And you're either trading money or time. So it's either you're paying out extra or you're spending a little extra time, maybe making a couple stops. And, depending on where you're at in the country or where you live, there's definitely opportunities or places you can go to kind of get what you need.
I guess it's about investing some time into doing some research and, I guess investing your time into your health as well.
Absolutely.
So should we be preparing for emergencies? What are well, no, that's not. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like everyone probably has their own definition of emergency. And it really depends on where you're living, right? What are you at risk for experiencing in your area? So, I mean, I live in Cleveland, right? We don't get tornadoes. We don't get hurricanes. We get snowstorms, right? So we may be under a foot of snow for a few days. And to us, that's not an emergency because this happens all the time. We sometimes may have power outages because of the storms, right? So it's really understanding like what kind of situations you're at risk at, where you're at. But also just know that emergencies are unexpected occurrences, right? So it's better to be prepared than be caught off guard. So it never hurts to have a little prep time or do something ahead of time and being ready for that.
But I'm guessing that even if you don't consider being snowed in for a few days an emergency, you still have to be prepared for it.
Yep. Absolutely. So having something like a backup plan or just something prepared just in case, and, definitely puts your mind at ease and sets you up for a position so that you don't have to go out or you're not stuck without food or anything for a couple hours to days.
So it's funny, you mentioned snowstorms. I thought of like 10 different emergencies and I completely forgot about snowstorms, which is, I think, a product of living in Australia where we don't have too many of those.
Not too much.
Lots of other emergencies, but so what should we be doing? Like, what's the first thing that we should do?
I think, again, it really depends. You're going to be hearing me say that a lot just because everyone's situation is a little different. Coming up with an understanding of what your area is at risk for and what happens on a regular basis. And then thinking about how this will impact me, right? So snowstorms, luckily for us, we may lose power. It's not like, we're going to lose our home or it's not going to, we're not going to have water leaks, hopefully. So really, and then how are you going to be able to prepare for those impacts, right? So making sure you have things stocked in your pantry and making sure that your fridge is working correctly. So if the power does go out, you just keep that thing sealed. Usually you should be able to keep the cold at least and keep things fresh for a number of hours before having to do something in addition to that.
I imagine in a snowstorm, the things in your fridge wouldn't be too much of a worry because you could just take it out and put it in the snow, right?
Yeah, that's a great point. I didn't even think about that. I thought about, having a cooler and, putting it on ice, but absolutely throwing it out in the snow and, for sure keep things frozen.
Yep. I saw something about how Canadians keep beers cold or something. I thought it was very funny.
I remember quick story. I did a part of my internship getting ready to be a dietitian in North Dakota in the summer. And I made a lot of great friends. So I went out there in the wintertime, and you do not want to be in North Dakota in the winter unless you actually have to. And I flew in there. It was a snowstorm, but some of my friends had gone like ice fishing, and they had these huge, like big bass fish, and they just kept them out in the snow to keep them cold. It was hysterical.
You're just like, I'm just going to get the fish now, and you just go outside and you just get the fish.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty sure I have a picture of like holding the fish out in this snowstorm, and it's huge.
Wow, that's so funny.
Yeah,
Would any animals come and try and take the fish?
it's a good question. Never thought about that. That area, it was more, like a city. So there wasn't a lot of wildlife
Okay.
out there, but something to definitely be aware of for sure.
hmm Um, so I guess, first of all, what are some misconceptions about preparing for
Yeah.
emergencies?
I think some misconceptions are that it's difficult, right? People probably don't want to put
hmm
the effort in to, have these things prepared and ready to go. When in reality, it could be just a matter of having certain foods on hand, just that that aren't going to go bad or shelf stable, that don't have to
hmm
be refrigerated, making sure that you have batteries, flashlights, especially essentially thinking about what you will need in case something happens, right? Um,
hmm
but also that's a time waste, right? Um, it's a time waste up until you need it, right? So it's going to take a little time and effort, but you don't want to be stuck without having that preparation. And some people might
Mm.
believe that it's unnecessary, right? Or they think, oh, no, I don't know what happened to me until it does.
So, what kinds of foods should people be preparing?
I think, again, it depends on what they have access to.
hmm
If you have maybe if you have battery operated kitchen equipment, you might not have to kind of think creatively or do something different. Um,
hmm
but something that's a good bet is just anything that is shelf stable that doesn't necessarily need refrigeration, but also provides good high quality nutrition. Right? I think
hmm
about like um, could always do. I love to have like canned tuna and chicken on hand, or those tuna pouches. Nuts are a great source of energy that don't need to be refrigerated, or they last a while in the pantry. Whole grain crackers are a great idea. So making sure that you have things that don't necessarily need to be temperature controlled, and you're storing a dark temper or dark um, dry place so that they don't go bad.
Mm. Because I imagined that things like flour and water and those things, they'd be really great until you don't have power, and then you
Right.
can't do anything with the flour or the pasta or anything like that.
Right.
We had a power outage at my house last year, and I didn't realize how many things I need, not just the fridge, but our stove is electric, our
Yeah.
heater is electric, and I thought it would be fine. And then I realized we couldn't cook anything.
Yeah.
We couldn't make hot water at all.
Yeah.
We couldn't heat any food up. So yeah, so you're saying that things like tuna and things and chicken are really great options that you can have cold. But should we
Uh,
have things like, yeah, sorry?
I was just saying it's a great source of protein, and yeah, you can
Mm,
just open up that can or that pouch, and a lot of the times these pouches of tuna and chicken are flavored, right? So you don't have to add anything to
mhm.
them, and it tastes great.
So, and how much should we have in the house?
Again, I think it really depends on what your risk of experiencing. Um,
hmm
we know that there's certain storms or hurricanes that go on for weeks, or things that happen where you may not have to or be able to get out, or you need to kind of adjust for a while. But I think it's safe to say maybe have a stock up of like 1 to 2 weeks of food that could just kind of help you through a pinch would be reasonable.
hmm And where should you keep it? Like in the kitchen, or should it,
Sure.
like, I imagine if you're in a hurricane, it should be in the basement,
hmm It really goes
or
down
if,
to it gets down to what kind of space you have accessible to you. Um,
hmm
I think with a hurricane, you think about water. Water tends to um, travel down, right? So it's going to go down to the lowest space. So basement might not be the safe thing for a hurricane, just because you might get a flooded basement. But really keeping things off the floor, dry, cool place, where you can kind of keep it safe from any kind of damage or critters.
hmm
Again, a pantry is great, or a cabinet in the basement. So anywhere that you have space in your home.
And should we have things in that stock, in that kit to cook things? Is it worth having like a camping stove or something like that? Or is that overkill, do you think?
I don't think it hurts, right? If you want to have warm food and you don't have to worry about that, like, yeah, that's a great idea. I didn't think about that, like a camping stove that runs on maybe a little canister of propane. If you don't want to eat cold food, you look for ways that you don't rely on your utilities to prepare.
And I imagine that after a little while, the canned chicken would go off, even if it's, a few years. So how often should we be looking at the kit and restocking it and making sure it's all okay?
That's a good question. I would say, if you have a certain stock that you don't touch that's only for emergencies, maybe just check the labels every 6 to 8 months just to make sure that things aren't expired or don't go bad.
Should we rotate it if it's easily accessible?
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. We kind of go by the thinking of first in, first out. So whatever you bought originally, you try and use that first so that there's a kind of rolling exchange of what's going to go bad and what's the most freshest that you keep over time.
So we also mentioned before, the fridges. What happens if your power does go out? What did you do with the food?
Really depends how long you think that you're going to be in trouble, right? So fridges usually keep cool, right? As long as you don't open it, it keeps that cold in there. It's really well insulated, but over time, again, that temperature can rise, right? So if you know it's going to be a couple hours, a couple days, and you don't have access to that, the coolness from the refrigerator, having a cooler ready to go with ice is not out of the question.
But then I guess where would you get the ice from if the fridge is broken?
Right. So hopefully you have ice already made.
Yeah, true. Hopefully. And how do we make sure that everything is safe to be consumed? What if we do find something that has been there for maybe a little bit longer than it should have been?
So
how do we check?
Absolutely. So, most products will have usually a sell by, use by date, right? And there's usually guidelines, right? So usually depending on the food, right? Past the use by date is okay, right? What we all look for is any kind of sign where it's gone bad, right? So you think about something oozing, really a bad aroma or smell, maybe a dent, or if you open it, it just doesn't look right. There's some kind of mold or something on there. So use your senses because that's going to be the best judge as to if it's safe to consume or not.
I always wonder when I get cans off the shelf, if they've got a dent on them, if I should take it home or not. Is that something that, even if I just bought it, should I be worried about that?
I mean, I normally, as I go shopping, I try not to buy anything dented just because I know that puts it at risk for kind of compromising that seal. But I've had things that have been dented before and I open it up and it's fine, right? So you still want to make sure that if you do buy something dented, that seal is still there and it's still the integrity is still there.
I guess with the dented ones, just inspect it a little bit more thoroughly than normal.
Absolutely.
So anything else that we should talk about?
Yeah, I thought about this earlier. I think that sometimes we underestimate just being prepared, right? Thinking through what can go wrong, and what we can do about it. So just kind of thinking about, okay, what if anything goes wrong? What do I need to do? Or how can I best be prepared for anything that comes my way? And that will definitely at least give you some guidance on how you could be ready for the unexpected.
Yeah. I think that's when should we do that? Should we go home and do it today?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, today is better than any other day.
Yes.
right?
Because I made a little emergency pack in my
I
house,
have.
and then it sat in the corner for like 5 years. And I've gradually taken things out of it as I needed them. But, how often should we be thinking about this? Should it be something that we think about once a year, just to,
Well,
think if anything else has changed?
that's a really good question. It wouldn't hurt just to kind of have at least kind of an annual check-in, say, hey, where am I at with, what kind of risk is associated with I'm at, how are things looking? Just kind of like a checkup. You just want to kind of audit and take a look at, okay, where am I at with everything? Do I need to kind of adjust or do something differently?
Because recently, so about a year ago in Melbourne, we had an earthquake, and that was the
Right.
first one we've had I don't think we've ever, well, I haven't had one.
Right.
People weren't expecting it. So I
Right.
think after that, everyone was a little bit more like, we have to be prepared for earthquakes.
Right.
So I guess that was something that no one had been thinking about before that, but now maybe we'll be a bit more prepared about that. So I think, doing those evaluations.
Right.
Another question I have is
Sure.
that some emergencies you have to evacuate rather than staying at home. For example, bushfires, which we have a lot,
Sure.
floods sometimes, or earthquakes where hopefully not, but building might come down. What should we grab? Like, what kinds of things should we pack for that kind of emergency?
Yourself and your family, right? Anything can be replaced, right? Unless there's something that is irreplaceable, right? And you can grab it very quickly, right? The safety is the most priority. So, the faster you get yourself out and, get everyone safe, that's what's most key.
In the case of like a bushfire, we do generally have, I don't know, a little bit of a warning sometimes.
Sure.
So like, should people be packing food and things for that? Is there any recommendations of what to bring in that case? Or
I mean, I think like if your home or your areas of residence is at risk, right, you want to try and save the things that are most important to you, right? Food can be replaced. Certain items of your property can be replaced, but same things like I have in my most important documents, like my birth certificate, in a fireproof kind of case here. I can just grab and go.
So maybe making a pack of, or knowing where everything is that's most important to you, so you can grab it in a emergency situation.
Absolutely.
So, what is a practice that you do when you go grocery shopping for your yourself?
Sure.
Yeah.
So, I use my phone as my grocery list, and I kind of use just the notes app there, right? So throughout the week, as I maybe finish off something, I try and add it to that. But also like right before I go, I kind of just think through categories. Okay, like let's talk about my carbohydrates or my breads, pastas, rices, those grains, right? Do I have the dairy I usually buy, right? So I kind of go by the categories, but also like the home essentials, right? Do I have all my hygiene products? Do I have my dishwash soap? Do I need batteries, or is a light bulb out, right? So kind of go through that thought process in my brain. Again, trying to go there when I'm not hungry, so I'm not grabbing things I know I don't need, and kind of just sticking to the standard items I buy. There's probably a handful of items that I buy all the time just because I know I'm going to use it. But always keeping an open mind, right? There's a lot of different products out there and it's always changing. So if there's something you're curious about, kind of take a look, see if it's something that you would help you meet your goals, or just could be something you enjoy, and just try it out. But again, try and stick to that list as close as you can, just because it can be very easy, going off the rails. You think about, like, there's always a joke, like, young people now, like the Target run, or you just go there and you go for one thing and you walk out with a whole cart of things you don't need, right? So trying to stick to your plan is just helpful, just to kind of limit the unnecessary purchases.
I can say that occasionally we've gone to the supermarket for dinner just to try and buy something. And it's the hardest experience because you don't want to eat any of the good for you food, but you just want to eat all of the snacks. You're just like, oh, maybe I'll have chips for dinner.
Yeah. And things too, like the one I love about nutrition and dietetics and our health, right? There's a lot of people want black and white. They want yes or no, which is a very simple answer, right? But when it comes to just our health and nutrition, it's not a zero-sum game or all or nothing. There are areas of gray, right? So there's opportunities for you to kind of splurge or do something off the plan. And it's not going to throw you off entirely, right? We look at trends or what you're doing habit-wise, behavior-wise over time. So yeah, if you eat something that you probably shouldn't every so often, you're still going to be okay.
Okay. What are those gray area foods?
So there's foods that we don't like to call any food good or bad, right? The only food that you should not eat is anything that's a chemical, anything that is spoiled, or anything that you're allergic to, right? So there's, we always get questions about processed, right? What is a processed food? Well, anything you buy at the store is essentially processed, but there's a spectrum, right? So if you buy fresh produce, that probably has been picked and cleaned and sanitized and kept temperature controlled, delivered to the grocery store, right? That's less processed than something that's a convenience, food that's maybe cooked up in a lab and created that's not natural, right? So you obviously want to do more foods that are less processed, but there's still a little bit of a wiggle room if you want to try and enjoy something that's maybe not the most natural or healthy product.
Okay, that's good to know. What about things like, I've always wondered, like, is flour considered processed or like sugar, is that processed?
So flour is basically, they're taking the wheat, right? They're taking that wheat germ and they're grinding it down to a pulp, right? So essentially it's still natural, right? They just kind of put it through a grinder and made it super duper fine, right? So you can bake with it and form it in whatever areas, right? And sugar is natural, right? Sugar is sugarcane, right? And they harvest it, they package it, they send it off, right? But we know sugar is what we call an empty calorie. So anything that basically provides calories but nothing else, and other like vitamins, minerals, essential nutrients, is only going to contribute to the bottom line of calories. And if you have too much of it, it can cause weight gain, which we know is, especially being in America, it's an obesity epidemic. So yes, there are foods that are natural, right? But they're not necessarily the best for us at the same time.
Okay. So that's interesting. I guess that's one of the ones where it isn't processed, but it's not good for you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So going back to your practice, which is that you make a list before you go grocery shopping, do you think that this impacts your home, like how you function in your home?
Absolutely. Right. So I try and go once a week just to kind of stock up and just kind of make sure I'm not running out of anything. And, when it comes to food and nutrition or behaviors, right, we're always going to do things that work the best for our lifestyle, right? But also what's most convenient, right? So if you have something in your fridge, right, that you probably should cook, that's going to go bad, right? You're less inclined to, go out to eat or get food delivered, right? So it's definitely impacting how I go about my day and how I plan my day, knowing that what I have in my fridge, will allow me to cook and prepare something that is nutritiously healthy for me.
Definitely. I find that when there's nothing in the fridge, I feel way more justified going out to eat.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got some questions from the audience as well.
Okay.
So our first question is, what are some items that people often forget to include in their emergency supplies?
That's a very good question. I think we always think of food, right? Because we need food to live. You probably think about bottles of water, right? That's an essential, right? But think about, some of the things that, will still provide, other areas that we need, right? Light, warmth, clothing. So making sure that you have flashlights or lanterns where available, enough batteries in case things, go dark. If you want to have some kind of stove, make sure that you have a little canister of gas or protein or propane. If there's something that you want to light, right, make sure you have lighters, so candles to kind of keep your home lit while you're kind of riding out maybe a power outage or something like that.
The one I have, which I went camping once and we forgot this, is a can opener.
Yeah, can opener.
To get into the food.
Absolutely. Trying to think what else. Silverware, right? So if you have utensils and plates and that's not necessarily something that you're going to lose out on, right? But if you got if you're at home, right, you have all your glassware. But like say you've got to run and you can't take everything with you, at least you have a couple plates and bowls and napkins and stuff like that. Something else that I'm just thinking of too is having a first aid kit, right? Saying someone gets hurt when you're out of the home, just having that really available will help a good deal too.
Yeah, very important. What are some alternative storage options if you have limited space?
It's a very good question. Definitely looking to maybe have some storage bins, right? So you can kind of pack things in and kind of put that on a shelf or in a garage, an attic or something. Definitely looking, putting things under the bed, right? That's a great area that probably doesn't get utilized a lot, that there's extra space there, it's not getting used. Or if you have the means, right, and you can get access to it at all times, maybe having some kind of storage unit, right, where you have things that in case of an emergency you can just go grab and then be on your way, or even in your car too, right? I kind of have some things that I keep in my car just in case they break down, right? So your flashers, blankets, gloves, in case you get broken down on the side of the road when it's cold out too.
I always make sure I've got a pair of socks in the car. You never know what you're going to need it for.
Oh, cold feet are the worst.
Exactly. Or like you go walking in the rain, shoes get wet. At least you've got some socks. That's my thinking anyway.
Well, I hate cold and wet feet. Yeah. No, thank you.
Yeah, no thanks. Do you have any suggestions on like how to involve kids in this process?
It's a good question. Very good question. Maybe have them help you pack things up, right? Hey, go grab that case of water and help me kind of pack a couple things in this bin here. Let's maybe at the store, let's pick out some things we can put in our in case of emergency supply kit, right? Let's pick out some tuna packages, or let's get you some nuts, trail mix. Maybe for the kids, maybe we'll just stow away some candy just so that it's a sign of comfort and normalcy, just so that they feel as part of it's their own too.
And I guess making sure that they like the food that you've packed. Because I can't imagine anything worse than having a kid who refuses to eat the food that you've packed in an emergency.
Sounds like a headache on top of a headache. Yeah, absolutely.
I guess the last question is, how do you know that you're not hoarding as opposed to stocking up and being prepared?
Very good question. If it sounds crazy, it probably is, right? If it sounds to be too much, it probably is. So, just kind of think about, okay, how many people am I, going to have to be responsible for? What am I preparing for, right? Is it going to be a week? Is it going to be 2 weeks? Will I have enough? And just know that this too shall pass, right? And there's always going to be a chance to get more in the future, right? So just kind of having enough, just kind of get through that difficult time, I think is just the way you want to think about it.
We're not preparing for the apocalypse, just a flood.
Yes, absolutely. No zombies here.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not.
Yeah. So we're going to move on to the open mic section. So did you have a topic that you've picked out?
Absolutely. So, when it comes to, dietitians, I'm actually a personal trainer myself as well. A lot of the times we get, a lot of patients just say, hey, just give me a diet plan or just give me a workout plan and I'll take care of it, right? When there's so many other different factors and things to consider, right? One thing that I believe is so undervalued is identifying your state of change, but also identifying your motivations and your psychology about change, right? So really thinking through, am I ready for this? Do I have the resources available to me? What is driving me? Are these positive thoughts? Are these berating thoughts, right? What are my thoughts around food? Do I make myself feel bad when I have something that's unhealthy? Am I scared of eating something because of something I read online? So really kind of thinking through your motivations and your psychology, right? There's so many books and so many resources where you can learn about different ways of thinking and different ways to approach change, because all these hard skills and goods we give you, right? The nutrition plan, the education, the fitness plan, or showing you how to do something is not going to work if your mind is in the right position, right? Because this is something that is long-term. It's something that needs to be taken care of every day. Behaviors, build our habits, build our outcomes, right? So if you don't have the right thought processes in place and the support systems in place, it's going to be super difficult to keep that going for a long period of time. So my message to people is to really identify what your thoughts are, what your behaviors are, how you approach food, and where your psychology is at. And if you don't have the resources to do that, employ someone who does, a psychologist, a coach, somebody who will really help kind of weed out and identify those things. In one area, a lot of what I noticed too is people just throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? So they start off with a clean slate and say, I'm just going to eat, go keto and forget everything else I'm doing and just go straight keto, right? Where our approach as dietitians is we meet you where you are. We talk about, okay, what are you currently doing? And we identify, hey, I like to say, here's your strengths. Here's what you're doing well, because I want to start things off on a good tone. These are things I want you to keep doing because you're hitting the marks and you're doing things that are good for you here, right? Mm-hmm. Let's talk about where there's areas of opportunities to make change, right? These are a couple things, 1, 2, 3, 4, I feel like are inhibiting you or maybe putting you in a worse position for making improvements in your life. Let's start there, right? And it's more of a slow, stepwise approach. I always kind of use the tortoise and the hare analogy, right? Small incremental steps over time, you build a foundation, you get comfortable, you get confident, and then you can continue making these changes, right? You're less uncomfortable, you feel really excited, you have the momentum going. So I say, hey, 3 or 4 things identified that maybe we need to work on over time. Let's start with 1 or 2. What do you feel comfortable right now focusing on making a change so that when we make the next change, this is something that's already concrete, it's already natural for you, so we don't have to worry about relapsing or going back on that change. So one thing I wish a lot of people understood is that not everything you're doing is unhealthy or bad, right? Pick 1 or 2 things that you identify that maybe is the easiest to change and focus on that first.
Mm-hmm. And how do you know what you're doing right?
Come see a dietitian. No, I mean, it really goes back to the basics, right? We learn this all in school, right? This is something that, a lot of curriculums have is, what's a healthy diet? What's a fruit? What's a vegetable, right? Going back to those basics, because we somehow lose our path with just our habits, our lifestyle, inconveniencing. We're pressured to work, and not take time for breaks, right? Going back to making sure you're trying to do healthy meals, right? Meals that are very imbalanced. Trying to have all those different food groups correct. But yeah, just trying to kind of come up with what are the foundational basics that maybe we lost along the way. And if you still don't know that, again, employing help from your doctor, where they can kind of at least refer you to the right kind of people or specialists. But also, if you're just going to look online, make sure you're looking at something that is reputable, because there's a lot of misinformation from social media and people just putting things on the web. Looking for relevant and reputable sources, right? So you think about like the FDA, USDA, American Heart Association, NIH, hospitals, right? Anything that usually has like a .edu or .gov tends to be more relevant and reliable than just like a .com.
Yeah, I've noticed that as well. Very useful. I find a lot of universities and governments have really great information
Absolutely.
that we just never look for.
Oh, for sure. And the thing is now with the internet and the way it's run, it's a business, right? So when you look at Google, right, they have those sponsored ads. So if there's a company that wants to, put the money out there and get the couple, results right up top, they're going to put the money out there unbeknownst to you, right? So you have to be a savvy, consumer and really make sure that you're vetting the information that's being pushed out to you.
Great advice. Is there anything else that we should know about?
When it comes to just your health and your nutrition, I think just the holistic approach is how you need to go about it, right? So kind of looking at that whole picture, right? All in all, kind of trying to have a well-rounded approach, right? So not only just look at nutrition, but also exercise, look at your relationships. So really kind of do an audit of where am I at with my wellness, my health, right? And what am I doing well? And maybe where do I need to make some changes to improve upon my health and have that longevity, right? And once you find that answer, seek out the help, right? There's so many resources and so many avenues to get the support you need to make changes, right? So seek out the help from online, different books or literature, but also, there's professionals, right? You're here for a reason to help. And I think it's something that people always go to Google, Dr. Google first before they ask their physician. And now with the internet and now with just the electronic, medical record, you have access to your doctor 24/7. You just send them a message. So really utilize those resources that you have access to because there's such a wealth of information out there.
I didn't know you could message your doctor. That's cool.
Yeah, it depends, right? So like with the Cleveland Clinic, which I'm a patient of, I'm able to log in through an app and, have direct access to the message my doctor, say, hey, this is what's going on. Can I get an antibiotic or whatever? And he'll just say, all right, yeah, hey, here's your prescription. So it really depends on the medical system and, what kind of resources they provide for their patients.
I think that's really great because sometimes you don't need a whole consultation, but
no.
Yeah, perfect. So if our listeners want to find out a little bit more about you, where should they go?
Absolutely. So you can find me online. My name is Anthony DiMarino, DiMarino. I'm on social media outlets, so like Instagram and Facebook more so. I have a small business called Eat, Move, Improve. And if you Google that and with my name, you'll find me. Got a lot of great resources on there. And feel free to email me, message me with any kind of questions. I'd be happy to connect with you.
Great. We'll make sure we put those links on our show notes so our listeners can find them. Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. I've learned a lot today.
I'm very happy to be here and thank you so much for the opportunity.
Perfect. Thank you. You've been listening to On the House, produced by the Household Management Science Labs, a division of LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. More episodes like this from across 10 life management perspectives can be found by searching LMSL on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, and any other podcasting apps available on your smart devices. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider rating, sharing, and subscribing to our channel, as it helps other people to find it so we can grow and continue to bring you quality resources. More of our work can be found on our website, hm.lmsl.net, where you can join our movement. I'm Gabriella Joustra. Thanks for tuning in.